just going on internet. Don't do this.
It has to be the best interview.
Okay. Hello. Who is there? One person is on. Who is it? I'm so curious. Who is it? Yes, Mofelala. Good afternoon. Well, it's evening here already. Good evening, Favor. Good evening. How are you guys? Hello, 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 hello. Guys, this is not my interview today, this evening. So, we have the one and, no, not the one and only, the lady or learner right here. So, don't be dismayed. She's here. And also, she's got a special guest for you in this marathon session. Happy birthday, Dr. Sunday. So, guys, it's still the same program. It's not my words. It's still Lady Oleda. So, please, as you're coming in, share this. Share, 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 as one person likes me to say. So, guys, please share as you're coming in. Thank you very much. I hope you're having a good evening. It's now Tuesday. I cannot wait. Dr. Sunday Adelajah will be 50 in a few days. Dun, 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 dun. I'm really excited. I am so looking forward to this. Thank you. I'm so looking forward to this. So, hey, yippee! Right, let me turn the camera so that we can start as soon as possible. So I'm going to turn the camera now for our host.
Hello everybody. This is our program and today we have special guest. This is Pastor Derek Schneider. And I speak in English
All
today.
right.
Pastor Derek, we're glad to see you. And
thank you.
My first question to you, what is your impression to Pastor Sunday is 50 years old?
Well, first of all, what a privilege it is to be on this show with you, Olena. I think your English is pretty good. Better than my Russian, that is for sure. But what is my impression with Pastor Sunday at 50? You know, after knowing him for so many years, I never thought I'd see the day that Pastor Sunday turns 50. And I have to say that of all those 50 years, Pastor Sunday has maximized every single moment. Maybe as a child, he didn't have control over what he did with some moments. But when he was conscious of himself, he maximized every second of those 50 years. So when I think of Pastor Sunday at 50, I think of a very, very full life. Somebody who has done more in 50 years than maybe somebody who had the ability to live for hundreds of years. Pastor Sunday has fit in centuries of self-development into 50 years. Pastor Sunday has fit in centuries of results and accomplishments in 50 years. 50 years for Pastor Sunday is quite amazing. And I think it's really just a marker point from one season of life to another. You know, many people who turn 50 generally are struggling with, hey, what am I going to do with my life after 50? Or we have the saying, is there life after 50? Well, for Pastor Sunday, it just keeps getting better. And many of you out there that are listening know some of the plans that he has. And I really see this milestone of 50, and I hope nobody minds me saying this, as a bit of an end to an era of church pastoring and an introduction to a mind-blowing era for Pastor Sunday as far as nation and continent development, continental transformation, and even his dive into philosophy and into a myriad of studies and different things that he's just so well educated in. I see life after 50 for Pastor Sunday as his best years. So those are my impressions.
Thank you. My Another question is, what is your opinion that Pastor Sunday is a person? Who is Pastor Sunday generally?
What a question. Always a tough question to answer that one. You know, it's like when Jesus asked of Peter, who do people say that I am? And he asked Peter, who do you say that I am? How do we really summarize who Pastor Sunday is? What I would like to say, of all the things he is, I'm going to stay away from the titles of apostle, pastor, doctor, all of that, as good as those are. In my mind, Pastor Sunday is somebody who comes around on this planet, if we're lucky, once in 100 years. Pastor Sunday is an altogether unique individual, and he's a history maker. He's a catalyst of change in any environment you put him in. He is a global reformer. You know, some studies and people who have come here and watched the work of God Embassy and Pastor Sunday have said his work may be remembered the same as Martin Luther, maybe even more so. He's a catalyst of what I believe is the future church, the church that God intended, where deliverers would be sent from Zion. You know, there's so much I want to say about him, but personally for me as a spiritual son, he's a father. He's a dad. He's a friend. He's a just altogether unique man and a very rare gem. I've said this already in another interview related to his 50th, that his 50th is really the unveiling of a diamond that has been formed under tremendous pressure. So that's who Pastor Sunday is to me. He's an example as well. He's somebody that allows us to get close enough so that we might be able to take on and adopt some of the virtues and values that he has found in God. You know, sometimes people think that we can praise somebody too much by saying things like that. But I understand it scripturally when Paul said, imitate me as I imitate Christ. There's a bit of a formula there where sometimes we don't know Christ the way we want to, but somebody else does. And it brings the nature and attributes of Christ just a little closer to home. And Pastor Sunday does that for so many around the world. So that's who he is to me.
Thank you. How has Pastor Sunday life influenced you and others people?
Well, how he's influenced others, I think, is very evident with the thousands of people raised up and sent and released into their callings, the thousands of people impacted by his work and ministry. For me, how he's influenced me, he has set me free from religious mindsets. He raised me as a son. He mentored me. He showed me what it is to be a man. As far as accomplishments, I'm so glad to have been able to, in the last number of years, you know, he helped me and mentored me during a time where I was leading a very significant revival in Canada. And he helped me take our movement from revival to real transformation, where it was impacting the community. And that's where I got bitten by the bug of transformation rather than just great services. And from there, I was able to be blessed with a real inheritance from him in the form of the History Makers Academy, where we pooled the trainings under the banner of the History Makers Academy. In the last 2 years, through the Academy, we've planted several branches. We have created what we call a History Makers Society, which is made up of graduates all around the world who know their purpose, know their calling, and they're active in society. Through this History Makers Academy, in the last 2.5 years, we've been able to reach close to 300,000 people. It's had tremendous impact. I've been able to stand before governments. I've been able to speak to convocations of lawyers and judges on the role of values and rule of law in a nation. He just really platformed me to be my best that God had intended for me. He helped me to step into my inheritance. And so much of what I do ministry-wise and my accomplishments, whether it's awards or whatever is you would consider an accomplishment, has come through his mentorship and fathering. So I'm very grateful for that.
And do you have favorite books of Pastor Sunday?
Oh, yeah. He's written so many books. I would have to say Church Shift is one of them. The Kingdom-Driven Life, definitely. Absolutely, The Kingdom-Driven Life. Money Won't Make You Rich. Let's just say those are my top three. Money Won't Make You Rich. If you haven't read that, you need to read it. The Kingdom-Driven Life is probably the foremost book written on the kingdom maybe ever. I can't think of another book that touches that as far as understanding the kingdom of God. I say that sincerely, and I'm not the only one that has said that. And the other one was Church Shift, and maybe an old one that you might not be familiar with that really helped me early in ministry and pastoring was the book Pastoring Without Tears. Pastoring Without Tears. So those would be my top books.
What teachings of pastor do you remember the most?
I'll say that one more time. What's the what, sorry?
The teachings.
Oh, teachings. Oh my, what a question. What teachings have impacted me the most? Definitely his messages on the kingdom. You know, I've got a funny story about this. A long time ago, I ordered his series on the kingdom of God. And I forgot that I had ordered it because it took so long to get to me. One morning, I'm laying in bed. Nobody's ever heard this before, I don't think, except him. I'm laying in bed, and I have a dream. And I hear the Lord say, "The kingdom is at your door." That's what I heard. The kingdom is at your door. And I woke up abruptly from this dream. And later that day, when I went to go out the door, there was the package that had finally arrived, which was all his kingdom teachings. And I began to devour those, and those just changed my life. But in the last number of days, he has introduced me to some phenomenal teachings that are starting to rival my appreciation for his kingdom messages, which are his messages about how to know when to marry, how to be a man, how to be a father, these very practical things that are so vital to us when we enter into marriage or family. You know, marriage and family, it will make you or break you. And as I've been diving into these teachings that are on his YouTube channel, I started to think, this is a gold mine. Maybe this is impacting me more than any of his other teachings. I had no idea. And so as of recent, that's what I'm into right now, that I'm just dancing in the street over discovering these.
Okay. How has your life changed with the help of Pastor Sunday?
Ooh. Well, I would have to say that not only has he helped me to discover what real ministry is, I probably, without his mentorship, would have been a typical pastor, maybe, or the status quo, or chasing some of the things that people in ministry chase after. I might have been running the circuit. You know, I might have been thinking, okay, this many people coming to my church means I have ministry success. I might have been thinking just holding great revival services is enough. I think he really, and I've often asked myself, what if I never had him around in my life? What kind of minister would I be? And only God knows. God has many ways of steering us the way that we should go. But I would have to say he has really steered me in the direction of everything I'm doing in ministry now. He became a real leader and example for me as far as ministry is concerned. The other is his understanding of how to handle trial, tribulation, pain, and pressure is just second to none. And there were key points in my life when the ministry began to grow. Anybody who's ever experienced any success in ministry, you know, you eventually run into problems. You eventually run into false accusation. You eventually run into vicious attack from people, Satan, conspiracy, and even just your own shortcomings and failures. You eventually come face to face with them. And typically in ministry, we have such a a performance that we put on. We don't want anybody to see our weaknesses. We can't let the world know who we are off stage. Pastor Sunday just whipped open his arms and began to show me the benefits of embracing problems, embracing trials. And you that know him know his teachings on this subject. And he really made it safe for me to confront my weaknesses. He gave me a safe place for me to grow in spite of myself. He gave me a safe place to go through my challenges and life crises. I've had some. Only at 36 years old, I've had some life crises that I've gone through. And he actually took me by the hand and walked me through them into the victory that I walk in now. I really have to say that. It's the truth. I don't know where I would be. It wasn't even just the advice he would give that was so accurate. I remember I said to him, Pastor, I was afraid to come to you and tell you about this. And he said, that's because you think that you're only good if you do this many good things, and you're bad if you do this wrong. But he said, a son is always accepted. A son is always accepted. And I never forgot that. And so that's a significant impact on my life, for sure. In every season of life, Pastor Sunday can introduce you to a protocol that will give you victory.
Mm-hmm. Pastor Derek, what principles teach you Pastor Sunday and help you in life? You understand?
Da! Good English. What principles? Well, I think definitely his principles on life being predictable and laws and principles that govern every sphere of life. If you remain ignorant to those laws and principles, you will fall short in life, even though you're under the grace of God. I think his principle on loving people and loving God is first and foremost. If you know Pastor Sunday, his thing is love, first and foremost. Another principle would be his understanding of system building and organization to rule in the earth realm. You just don't hear that taught. And the body of Christ just falls short as far as impacting society in so many ways because of our ignorance to that. I love his ability to balance spiritual and practical. You really don't see that too many places. His principles related to spirituality, the balance of spirituality and practicality, is just uncanny. I think as well, his principles as it relates to relationships, the importance of marriage, the importance of family, as well his principles as far as values building a nation. Not just great services, but actual values and principles that can rebuild a country. That has deeply, deeply impacted me. I think as well work ethic. Work ethic. I really have to say I didn't know what work was until I met him. He has introduced me to the ability to balance life where you have prayer, but you also have work. Really, it's all work. You know, even the spiritual things Jesus did. He said, I work because my Father is working. These are things I've learned from Pastor Sunday, that it's all under one banner because when you do it for the kingdom. So these are some of the key principles that I've learned from Pastor Sunday.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Do you remember your first meeting with Pastor?
Oh, of course.
How is it?
I included it in my first book. My first meeting with Pastor Sunday was very interesting. My father was going to be preaching at a conference in Amsterdam, and this Pastor Sunday was the other speaker. And I had heard that just, what they would say at that time was that the book of Acts was happening in Kiev, Ukraine, because of this Pastor Sunday. So I was set to go to Amsterdam with my father, and I was just flying in from Israel to Canada, was going to collect my bags, and then a few days later go with Dad to Amsterdam. My bags never showed up, and for some reason the airline had trouble finding them, so I was going to go to the airport anyways with the clothes on my back. Went to the airport, and through a miracle, my bags were discovered by a plain-clothed man who walked up to me and said, "Are you Derek Schneider?" handed me my bags and walked away. We, to this day, believe it was an angel of some kind. So now I had my bags. We're now at the desk, my father and I, and their computer starts to malfunction. They say, "We know you're registered for seats, but we don't have you in the system." She says, "We've never seen anything like this before." Finally, we're about to miss our flight, and they go to print the tickets, and the printer breaks right in front of them. And I remember the lady looked at both my dad and I, and she said, "Who are you guys?" And Dad stopped, and he prayed, and he said to me, "I think you're going to Amsterdam for a reason. I think there's something for you at this conference." So we made it on the plane just in time, flew there, and the first night, this Pastor Sunday was speaking. Apart from him being very charismatic, this laughing Nigerian man with a great suit on, you know, there was just something about him. And when he got up and began to preach, I don't know why, but I began to weep. I couldn't explain what it was. You know, I grew up in church, had been in great services before, but it felt like a strange gospel to me. It felt like a gospel that I had never heard before. And to this day I say, it felt like I heard the gospel for the first time. And at the end of his teaching, you know, I've still got tears. I remember looking around. Nobody else was crying. I didn't know why I was crying. I wanted to go up to him and ask him to pray for me. And I did everything to hold myself from not being the guy that goes and asks the pastor to pray for him. Somehow I found myself out of my chair, walked over to him, and I said with tears in my eyes, and he must have seen my passion, I said, "Pastor Sunday, we need this in Canada." And he smiled and walked away, and I wondered why he walked away. It was just to put his water bottle down, and he came back, and he grabbed me and prayed the most unreligious prayer I had ever had or seen before in my life. And he laid hands on me, and my whole left side of my body began to shake, and he began to prophesy and pray, and then grabbed me and pulled me like a bear hug. I'd never been prayed for through a bear hug before, we call it in our country. Pulled me against him and yelled at the top of his lungs, "God, give him what I've got." And it felt like a house came down on me in the spirit. And I hit the floor, and he stumbled back, and you know, the Dutch still say today of that meeting, it looked like two drunk men fighting. And I hit the floor, and I could hear God speaking on the floor as a man speaks to a man. And the Lord told me what he was going to do with my life. And from then on, everything changed. I went back to Canada, was hired on as a pastor, revival broke out, and eventually I wrote to Pastor Sunday just to thank him for the prayer. And he wrote back and said he would like to be a mentor to me if I would want that. Of course I did, and that began our relationship.
Thank you. What life results change do you have thanks to Pastor Sunday?
What life results?
Yes. Today.
Today. Well, I've named a number of them. Life results. Do you mean like personally or ministry?
Personal and ministry.
Real results. Well, we have the History Makers Academy. We have the History Makers Society. We reach thousands of people each year. We train and equip and release people into their destiny and purpose. I've received several awards related to transformation and impact of community. We have a TV show now called Beyond the Four Walls. This television show is based on my book, Beyond the Four Walls, which is a lot to do with the effect that Pastor Sunday's life and this church has had on us and our church. And so that became a TV show. Personally, it's hard to say, it's hard to spell out the changes. It's hard to talk about yourself that way, but I would say that my entire being has changed. I'm not who I would be without his help, his understanding, his mentorship, and even just the desire to love people. You know, that was a significant change in my life. That was a milestone when I told the Lord, even if you never give me a significant ministry, Just teach me to love as Pastor Sunday loves people. And God really began to answer that prayer. That would be a significant one. I think as well, He's made me to be very free. Mm-hmm. He's made me to lose my fear of reputation, religiosity, fear of failure, fear of whatever could come upon me. It kind of fell by the wayside through His help. He taught me how to be a person of courage, how to be brave, how to be unrelenting when problems come, how to not stop no matter how fierce the attack is, how to endure under pressure. And when you start to learn some of those things, you really begin to be a man. You become strong. He made me to be strong and to persevere. And His example helped me to relate to situations differently than I would have without Him. I like to always say to people, Pastor Sunday will teach you how to think. Mm-hmm. It's different when you imitate somebody because you've seen them do something. The problem with that is when you end up in a situation you didn't see them in, you don't know how they would react. But Pastor Sunday teaches you how to think so that no matter what situation you end up in, you have a philosophy or a plumb line or a principle that you can apply immediately and get the result that he would get if he was in your shoes.
Mm-hmm. Pastor Derek, who is Pastor Sunday personal to you?
Pastor Sunday personally to me, a father. Absolutely a father. A friend, a dad, an example, just a sharp, classy guy that most often says the right things at the right time. And he's somebody who's very perceptive to where you're at, how you're feeling. He's aware. He's somebody that makes you feel important, makes you feel special, makes you feel affirmed, makes you feel valued and loved. A good story that could kind of characterize this was when I came and stayed here for a month. He knew I had been away from the kind of food that I like at home for quite some time. And we had just had the church service, and we got into his car, and Perez and Zoe and Pearl were there, the driver, security, Pastor Sunday, myself, and we were just on our way back. And I noticed how he would give each of us time to share. He would, talk with Zoe, and he would talk with Perez, and then he would come back to me, and he was just so aware of including everybody in that time that we had with him in the car. And I remember him saying something to the driver, and the driver went a different direction. And Pastor Sunday looked at me and he said, maybe you've been away and maybe you'd like some McDonald's today. And he didn't know, I don't know how he knew how much I was craving McDonald's. As bad as that sounds, I was just craving something that was familiar to me, And he took our cars, there was other cars that were with us, through the drive-through of McDonald's. And you should have seen the people in the drive-through, looking in the windows because they knew who it was. I mean, on the side of the car, there were the graphic scenes of the Passion of the Christ and the crucifixion of Jesus. And we all ordered this McDonald's and ate it in the car. And, that's just the way he is. I shared another story recently of the last day I was here on that trip. I remember I had to leave for the airport at 3 a.m. I don't know how he knew. And I get this knock at the door at almost 3 a.m. in one of the apartments here. And it was him, and he came in, eyes looking like this, ready for bed. And he just wanted to say goodbye. And he said, when we said our goodbyes, he said, now I have peace. Now I can go to sleep. And he just has a way, whether he means it or not, which I think he does, he just has a way of making you feel important. And we see that in the Bible. That spirit is the spirit of Jesus, where Jesus could be walking through a crowd of how many people and pull Zacchaeus down from a tree and make such a lowly man feel so special. Jesus just had a way of loving the one. And I would have to say that Pastor Sunday has really learned through working on himself the ability to love the one person and pay attention to them. And I really think he's taken this example from Jesus and from his relationship with God. So hopefully that answers your question.
Yes, thank you. My next question is, how has Pastor Sunday's life influenced others people?
Other people? Mm-hmm. Well, I think that Pastor Sunday has the ability and the grace to really rattle any religion that you've picked up along the way through the institutional church. Mm-hmm. Even just some conversations with him, even if you just have I've seen people come and visit here who have one meeting with him and then they've got to go. And they're totally turned upside down from the conversation because he seems to have kept himself, by God's grace, from any religiosity that narrows our understanding. Religion really boxes God in. Religion keeps people ignorant. And he seems to have remained free of that. So he's kind of a deliverer of people in the area of religiosity. Then if you're not a religious person, his influence on you will leave you saying, there's something different about this man. I feel loved, and I want to know why he is that way, and he will introduce you to God.
Mm-hmm. Pastor Derek, what the secret, Pastor Sunday? How you think about this?
What is his secret? Mm-hmm. Is that the question? His secret in ministry or life?
And as the great person.
The secret. Well, it would be hard to say there's one secret. You know, the saying says behind every great success are great secrets. And I think I could name a few of them that could probably span his personal life and ministry altogether. I think number one is definitely his love for God and love for people. I would say love for God and love for people. The second one, which it amazes me that people don't apply this one, and pastors especially, I can't imagine hearing about this practice Pastor Sunday has and the obvious results that come from it and then not apply it. But his personal prayer retreats. As you know, Pastor Sunday will take a full week. I take 3 days. But he will take a full week alone, secluded with God, no family, no ministry, no nothing. Totally locked up with God, fasting, praying. And he'll have full-out visitations from Jesus. And he said that he used to do that with the intention of growing the ministry. And I fell into that trap at first too. He said now he does it to become like the Lord, to be with God, to have God change him and mold him and shape him. And I know for a fact such a high percentage of who Pastor Sunday is and the results he has are from those retreats. I saw what they did in my life over 3 days. Pastor Sunday would tell me how he would come out of those retreats just carrying the glory of God, just more and more in the image and likeness of Christ. And when you are conformed to the image of Jesus, ministry is no problem, because you begin to get the results that Jesus would get if he was in your shoes. And so his prayer retreats, I think, have been so key into forming him into who he is and also the results that he gets. The third thing I would have to say, as far as a secret, and some people won't get this when I say this. You'll think, yeah, I got it. His work ethic. His work ethic. And I'm not talking about just being a hard-working person. He's also a smart worker. He teaches that 70% of work is the mental labor. 70% of a result is the mental labor that you put in first through system building, blueprint, plan, mapping it out. Pastor Sunday doesn't execute anything without first very thoroughly mapping it out and preparing it. And that's part of his work. And then his execution is so much easier, so much more accurate, and he gets results. He's not hitting and missing. Jesus said, I only do what I hear and see the Father doing. I see this the same with Pastor Sunday. He only works and does what is something that he can convert from the Father realm, from the spiritual realm, into practical, tangible here on earth. And so definitely his work ethic, those three things, and I've thought about this before, how can you summarize them? People have asked me this question before. Those three things absolutely are the secrets behind Pastor Sunday's fruitfulness and significance.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. What will Pastor Sunday leave behind after he leaves the earth?
Oh, well, he'll probably leave about 1,000 books. That's for sure. He's at over 300 now, so he has a goal of 1,000. I believe, some of the things I might say you might think are crazy, but it's because I know him. It's because of some intimate conversations we've had and notes and things in his iPad that he's shown me. And I have a track record of watching him over 10 years and studying what he's done here. Pastor Sunday will not only leave a legacy of thousands of people, maybe more, impacted, directly or indirectly. He'll not only leave 1,000 books and thousands of teachings. I believe Pastor Sunday will leave the continent of Africa completely different than it is now. I actually believe that Pastor Sunday is going to be instrumental in raising up Nigeria to be a catalyst for the total transformation of the continent of Africa. And this doesn't just come from things he shared with me and, of course, his plans. I saw in a dream last year, before he shared any of this with me, I was preaching. I had just landed in Africa, in Namibia, actually. I wasn't thinking about this, but I landed there and I had a dream that I was preaching at the Embassy of God's anniversary service. And from the stage I said, Pastor Sunday is going to enter Nigeria with an explosion, a good explosion. He was just going to enter with a bang, and I think that's why there's such a significant, if you think of a slingshot, such a significant drawback of tension right now with him. If he's the stone in the slingshot, you pull it back and there's this tension building. I think that's why it appears as though God has him in reverse right now, under such tension and pressure here, because that is actually going to be fuel to launch him into Nigeria with an explosion. Now, the next part of the dream was we were backstage. We were down from the stage at the anniversary, and I whispered something in his ear, something that has never even entered my mind as possible for Africa, just because of my own North American or Canadian perspective. I said in his ear, imagine when Africa leads the world. This was something I couldn't, even when I woke up, I almost didn't take the dream seriously. And so I contacted him and told him about this, and that's when he began to share with me his plans for Africa. And I began to do a little bit of my own study of leaders who have done significant things in Africa, and I really believe that this is possible, and this is the next phase for Pastor Sunday's ministry.
Thank you. And what you wish Pastor Sunday to his birthday?
Oh, okay. Well, Pastor Sunday, I have sent you some wishes already, but, I can just say it again. I wish for you to feel satisfied. Of course, you need to be dissatisfied in a way that keeps you working, but I hope that you're satisfied with what you've done in 50 years. I hope that you're satisfied with what you've overcome in 50 years. I hope that you're satisfied with who you are as a son of God in your 50 years. And I hope that you take a moment to really enjoy this party this week, to really enjoy this once-in-a-lifetime milestone, this jubilee. It should be a celebration. And if I know you, you'll celebrate. You celebrate when things are bad, let alone at your own party, I'm sure. So I wish for you that all that you set your hand to would be accomplished. I wish for you that you would no longer be able to say, I've only accomplished 5% of what I set out to do. And I wish for you in these next years, for them to be totally different than these past years. That's my wish for you. So happy birthday, happy 50th to you, Dad.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Pastor Derek. Maybe you will tell our guest
viewers.
How do you say? Yes, audience. Maybe you say декілька слів. What you say our audience
to the guest.
To the guest.
Well, those who are watching, I encourage you to offer your prayer support to Pastor. I encourage you to be an encouragement to him. This is the time to get behind and support him as a man, as a father. I've been around a little bit now with this church and with him, and I know the truth will come out, the truth of who he is, whether it be in the courts or wherever else. I encourage you to, if you are loyal to him and walking with him, to just honor that relationship. And to remember that fathers go through things. And you want to be on the right side of that relationship when a father comes through a situation and experiences resurrection. You want to be, it says in the scripture, if you want to be in the likeness of his resurrection, you're going to be in the likeness of his crucifixion. So I encourage you to stick with Pastor. But also, wow, I'm discovering things on YouTube, on his YouTube channel, that I have never heard anywhere in my entire life. So I encourage you to dig deep, because he's starting to share things that he never used to share before. He's giving away secrets. He's sharing things that even if you asked him about a few years ago, he wouldn't have told you. He's just letting it all out for you, and this is on his YouTube. This is a result that only pressure and prison here could bring. And he's sharing things that are just paramount for your life. So I encourage you to dig deep, go into the archives, look for the lessons that mean a lot to you at this point in your life. I listen to every message 4 to 7 times. I take it very seriously. I want the word to become flesh in me. And I'd also like to say it's okay to listen to one preacher. Of course, I listen to other preachers, but my main source of where I'm learning and drinking from is Pastor Sunday, and I think that's fine. That doesn't make me a fanatic. It doesn't make me an idol worshiper. It's just that's where I'm getting the stuff that I need to become who God wants me to become. So I'd encourage you to be radical about digesting his books and teachings at this phase in his life, because we may not see a man like this again for who knows how many years.
And thank you very much, Pastor Derek, about your wisdom, and thank you very much, our guest. My question is,
Hello guys, thank you.
Spasiba.
Pastor Derek and Olena there in the marathon testimonials for today. Guys, Pastor Sunday is in court today, and he's on his way back. So hopefully we would have him for the next session. But in the meantime, because I know we have an hour for this, we don't necessarily have to go for an hour. But I think the guys have done a sterling job in terms of the questions and the answers that they gave you. There was no interruption like with me, where I would summarize everything, which is fantastic, because this is another style of interviewing. This is great. So guys, I'm going to read out some of your comments in the meantime, and then we will say our goodbye so that you can get ready for the next one, which would be in just over an hour. So let me just quickly read them out. I think Olena and Pastor Derek would like to hear some of this. So there's some greetings. Good afternoon, Pastor. Good afternoon, DSA family. Hello, hello, hello. I have, let me go to the comment. Okay, blessings, Pastor Derek, Olena, there's greeting you. Okay, there's a few questions. Okay, no question. Chioma is saying that, Pastor Derek, your dream is real. I saw DSA in my dream last year that he came to Nigeria, and there was so much rejoicing as people were practically being released into the land of promise.
Wow.
So that's Chioma agreeing with you there.
Wow.
Yeah. And then we have Jane saying, wow, DSA is generous. Thank you, Pastor Derek, for this advice. That's from Jane. I think it's the advice to pray for him.
Yeah.
And then we have Darlene saying there's nothing like shopping and listening to this on this whole beautiful free internet. Well done, Darlene. Make sure you're digesting them as you're listening as well. Well done.
As you're shopping.
Yes, that's women for you, multitasking. Well done. And then people just saying good afternoon, good evening, Pastor Derek and Olena. Thank you, Pastor Derek. Thank you, Pastor. So guys, just a few comments there, and thank you and your love. Don't forget to share this. Please still share, because there's some really good answers to Olena's questions there. There was no interruption. It was just good questioning and answer.
And good English.
Yeah.
Good
Thank
English.
you.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
First time.
Really? Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So Olena there and Pastor Derek. So guys, we're going to see you again soon. We hope that Pastor Sunday would be here. He should be on his way by now, right now. So we will come back, okay? So remember to share this and come back. It's going to be fun. You know, yesterday was great when we had a question time, and I'm sure today will be fantastic as well. So join us again in just over an hour. So that will give you time to go and freshen up and come back, okay? So we'll see you again soon. Thank you for joining us. Bye.
Bye-bye.
I was about to say bye.